So on the table today I have
Cassandra Cass. I'm so ready.
Dun, dun, dun.
Okay, head down.
Head down.
Okay.
Comfortable.
Oh yeah, I'm really comfortable. So comfy.
Oh, I love you. I love you.
Did I ever tell you I was with this guy who made me give him a massage like 20 minutes before I could even touch his penis?
Ew.
Isn't that ridiculous?
Yes.
No.
Wouldn't you think they'd want to go straight for the penis?
Right?
I know. Well, I think he was gay.
Pretty sure.
Yeah, we all know.
I met him. He was,
Yeah.
Holy shit, look at your waist.
I know.
Stupid.
I- Well, I eat at McDonald's all the
Of
time.
course you do.
So is this the point where I like talk about my story? And
Yes. Well, first of all, have you ever had a massage before?
I have, but not like this, which is kind of phenomenal.
Not in a seedy motel. Okay.
Thank you to our sponsor.
Yes.
Thank you to our sponsor, the Sahara Motor
The
Hotel.
Sahara Motor Lodge.
Yes, Motor Lodge, who is amazing for letting us do this. I've actually never massaged in a motel before, and I'm very excited.
I
Yeah.
could be the first.
We had no idea where we were going, and they gave us a home. We're not homeless,
Yeah.
and we appreciate them very, very, very much.
And because I'm from the East Coast, I was like, they gotta be fancy. They have a pool. So
And we're in the Lucille Ballroom.
I saw that. That's kind of cool.
yeah, all the rooms well, they're not really themed. They just have faces outside the doors. But
Yes.
When I was walking in here, I actually got offered $20.
Oh.
Yeah, some guy was like, "Hey, after you're done, come to my room."
Oh.
For 20?
20? I know. I'm at least a good 30.
You're all bitch, that won't pay for my McDonald's. Yes, so you've had one before.
I have, but it was more. It wasn't like this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, awesome. Okay, so Cassandra Cass and I met almost a year ago.
Right.
It was raining. It was dark and gloomy. It was on Sun. No, I was gonna set the stage. Sorry, went into author mode there for a minute. Yes, so we met on Sunset in line for the Kill Tony show, and you had your calendar, which I'm sure my kids have all jacked off to. Yeah.
Except for Brody, who's still figuring it out.
Yeah, Brody just probably licks his finger and rubs the pages. I don't.
This is how
Brody
sex
does.
works.
There's something so wrong about that. How old's Brody?
7?
Oh my god. I honestly didn't even, I'm transgender and I didn't even masturbate. I think the first time I ever did, I was 13. But I was in Iowa, so there was a lot of shame associated with it.
Now, did you grow up religious?
I grew up Catholic, but
Well, Catholic's a good one because after you get in trouble, you just say a couple Hail Marys and you're good again.
exactly. I mean, they send us to Sunday school, but my dad was like an alcoholic and a womanizer.
Right.
So it was kind of like confusing because, you go to Sunday school and they're like, oh, be honest, do this. And then you go home and you're like, wait. But what I liked about it was the structure. Like they pick you up at a certain time, because at home there really wasn't any structure, and it kind of taught me, that the key to success is organization and things like that. But I remember in the second grade, the preacher called on me, and he thought I was a little girl, because I was very, very, effeminate as a little boy. And I went up there, and he was like, oh, so young lady, what do and I was so happy, but then I sat down, and that's when everyone started picking on me. They're like, oh, you're, and you start hearing all these words, like, you want to be a girl, or are you gay, are you a fag, and I didn't even know what that was.
Right.
And, I went home to my dad, and I said, and I didn't really talk to my dad, I was not close to him, and I was actually quite scared of him. He was very masculine, and, and I said, Dad, what's a fag? You can imagine he's like, he just had the most awful look on his face, but didn't describe it, but I knew it wasn't something good.
Right.
Or at least that's what I felt. I don't remember the words, I just remember thinking, ooh, I don't want to be that. But I always knew inside that I wished I would have been like a little girl. So I remember, you know, like at the time Cabbage Patch Dolls were really in and My Little Pony, and I would beg my mother and she would actually buy them for me. And my dad would always be like, you're going to make that kid a fag, you know, so I heard that word again. And so, you know, as I got a little bit older and I was like 8 or 9, my parents got divorced.
Okay.
And I was super happy about that because I thought my dad was just awful. I didn't like him, and I loved my mom. I thought she was, you know, everyone thinks their mother is like Madonna, you know, like just amazing.
Right.
And so they got divorced, and then my mother kind of went batshit crazy, you know. She'd been dealing with this narcissistic guy for, you know, 15 years, had 4 little boys within 4 years, and she
Damn,
was,
Mom.
yeah, she was so overwhelmed, and she just kind of got addicted to drugs, and then she got like a boyfriend who was like much younger, who just manipulated and used her, and then she ended up disappearing. So it was either going to group homes or going to live with my dad. Yay! So I went to go live with my dad, all of us, and that
And how old were you?
I was like 8, 9.
Oh,
9
so it
years
was
old.
like almost right away.
Right away. She didn't last very long.
Okay, okay.
And yeah, because we thought once, you know, they were separated and everything, we thought, oh, yay. She went down quick, you know, and
Damn,
yeah,
okay.
it was rough. But I remember as a kid, like, they came to our house and they repossessed the house. And I had, like, you know, a dog and a cat, and we had to leave our animals there. I mean, it was really, like, really dramatic. And then all our clothes were thrown into a big dumpster, and I remember all of us standing on the corner with trash bags, whatever we could grab, and then my dad picking us up. And yeah, it was just really awful. And then of course after that happens, you want your mother, you want someone to comfort you, and my dad was not like that. So of course we started all acting out. You know, I would not go to school, and you know, wouldn't really follow the rules. Not that there were any, but I just...
Now, where were you in the 4?
I was number 3.
Number 3, okay.
Yeah, so I was in that weird mix of... But I was always like the little star of the family. You know, they always say the middle child always really tries to overcompensate. And that was me. I was always like, you know, the apple of my mom's eye. I was always the fun one who sung and danced, and... You know, I wanted to be a performer.
Right.
But my parents weren't supportive. I mean, my dad, you know, thought it was very gay, and my mother was overwhelmed. So basically, at that point, my younger brother was sent to a group home, and then I was sent to another group home, which honestly, from I think it was 12 to, I think 17, no, 12 to 16. I went to a group home, which was the best thing that ever happened, because it's structure. It came back to structure again, you know. We would wake up, have to make our beds, you know. People couldn't really pick on you because, you know, they had, you know, staff who would stop that if kids started, you know, messing with you. So I learned about, you know, about myself, and I didn't know I was transgender. I always knew I wanted to be a girl, but I didn't know what transgender was.
Right.
I just felt, and they thought I was gay, because, you know, everyone, you know, if you're a boy and you're feminine, you're gay. They didn't really understand it. This was like the 90s, you know? Or people just weren't aware, or they didn't want to be aware, really. So I remember we'd have to go to therapy in the group home, and I remember I had a female therapist, and they said, oh, no, we're going to change your therapist to a male. And I'm like, why? And they're like, well, you need a good male role model. I mean, it was just like,
oh my God.
I know it's stupid, right?
Eye roll, yes.
Yeah, so, and then they gave me a book about, like, what is, this is ridiculous. They gave me a book about what is a feminine role model and a male role model.
Was it like Mike Pence?
I can't even remember, but it was so like, basically saying this is how a boy should act. And I was like, God, this is insane. And then I remember I got out of the group home and I went back to live with my dad.
Okay.
And I was watching TV with my older brother, and Tula came on, who is Carolyn Cossie. She was the famous Bond girl, who was she was the first transsexual in Playboy. And she was on Maury Povich, and I was like, oh my God, that's what I want, that's who I am. You know, and I found out later, we're actually friends now, but I found out that we both have the same birthday, you know, August 31st. It was just weird, but, you know, we were, you know, a couple, like, you know, a good 20 some years apart. But she was stunning, you know, from England, and some of the listeners might know who she is.
Right.
Carolyn Cossey. But long story short, I told my brother, I'm like, that's what I want to be. And he was like, oh, well, she's a woman, you know, like, and I thought, oh, wow, he accepts her. You know, but then I realized later in life, people might accept people until it comes to one of theirs. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, it's okay, they're gay, until it's like, you're the one, or you're the transsexual sister. So then I went and I told my dad, I said, because I'm a go-getter, I don't wait around. Once I knew, you know, what I wanted to be, I was like, okay, I want to be this.
Right.
And I said, Dad, I came home and I said, listen, I really want to live my life as a woman. And he was reading the paper, and he lowers the paper, and I remember this, I'll never forget this. He lowered the paper and he looked at me and he said, who is ever going to want to be with that? And who is ever going to love you? And keep in mind, this is my father. So you're thinking like, holy shit, I just opened up to him and he's telling me that no one's ever going to love me.
And where's Mom?
Mom had disappeared.
Okay.
She had, you know, went on her drug binge. She had disappeared. I didn't know where she was. So I felt abandoned by her. I felt completely misunderstood by my father, who told me no one was ever going to love me, so you can imagine. So I was confused, and so I took an overdose of pills. But I didn't want to die. I wanted to be heard. So I actually called the ambulance. You know, I just took it to kind of like freak them out, you know, to wake them up. And I remember the look in my older brother's eyes that he actually, I could tell he was scared, you know, like maybe I was going to die or something. And I remember the ambulance came, and I had really long hair at the time because I was growing it out. And they thought I was a woman, you know, they're like, oh, miss. And I'm like, no, that's the whole problem. You know, I'm trying to be me and nobody supports me. So at this point, after I got out of the hospital, they pumped my stomach. They put me in like, you know, they put you in like a little mental institution. Because of course, you gotta be crazy. Because, you know, not looking at the problem, which is maybe you're not being heard, maybe you're misunderstood. But anyways, that was another, honestly, every place other than home was the best thing for me. And when I was in there, you know, they had therapists, and I got to learn about stuff, and you know, and then I got out and I was like 17, and I had to, see, I was held back in school when I was like in kindergarten because I was really young. And then in second grade I had ADD. So I just had a really hard time like focusing. I've always been a really creative person, but it's really hard for me to like focus on like paperwork and
that's how my mental is.
Yeah, but it doesn't mean I learned later in life. It doesn't mean you're stupid.
No.
But, you know, then I thought, oh my God, I'm dumb, and didn't realize I had other gifts.
Right.
So at that point, you know, I went to school, high school, and of course, that was a nightmare. You know, oh God, yeah. Kids were like, just horrible. I mean, they would kick me, I was spit on. You know, I try not to even think about this now, you know, because it's like, ugh, it's just so depressing.
Right, you almost remove yourself from it.
I had
That's
to.
not my past. That's how I feel about my ex, because it was so abusive that I'm like, it can't be me.
That wasn't you.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I completely, well, I mean, obviously not to your extent.
No, but that-
I get it, yes.
But Joy, that also primes us to be abused, because we have this ability to almost like be abused and then almost put it aside, which allows the abuser to come back again.
Yes.
Almost like we restart. And I learned as an adult, I've been loved. I have been in a very healthy relationship, but I've also been abused by, you know, some men. And I was always like thinking like, why? And then I realized that sometimes my strength and my ability to put things away works against me. You know, because they could treat me like shit, then I don't talk to them for a month, and then I feel better, my confidence is back, and you kind of put it away, and you're like, oh, let's start over.
Right.
But they don't change.
No, they don't.
So, long story short is, you know, I dropped out of school, and I went to work. You know, I got like jobs at fast food and you know, started living on my own, which was very exciting, very scary, but also very exciting.
Right.
And of course, I gravitated towards the gay scene because, you know, they were people who were fun and creative and accepting. And, you know, I started becoming a performer. I started out doing drag, and I was pretty good at it. You know, I loved to perform, and they seemed to enjoy what I was doing. And then from that, I remember I was working, and they would always have out-of-town performers come in. And there was this beautiful, like, I guess, transgender woman. And I'd never seen one in person at the time. And her name was Mimi Marks, and she was stunning. She was from Chicago, and she was like blonde and blue-eyed and everything I wanted to be, just a bombshell. I'll never forget, she was wearing like a blue jean dress, and you know, in Iowa that was hot. You know what I mean? Like, it was
she's holding corn.
Yeah, she's holding corn. All American from what, you know, I thought that's what I wanted to be.
She smelled like apple pie.
Apple pie. Which is so funny because all these people I admired 20 years, you know, I'm friends with them now. And I actually recently visited her in Chicago, and she was like, oh my God, I'm so amazed by what you're doing. And it was such a full circle moment.
Right.
You know, to be like, really? I looked up to you, and now you're telling, it's crazy. But, so I decided that I need to get the hell out of Iowa. Because, you know, there was nothing going on, you know.
Right.
I couldn't really transition. And my mother had come back into my life briefly, and she was dying of cancer. I know, this is like, oh my God.
And how old are you now?
At this point, she came back in like 21, 22, and we reconnected. Like, I love my mother, you know, and I basically was very angry at her. I couldn't understand why she would leave. And I understand now, you know, a good 20 years later, but in my early 20s, I still was full of anger but I was there for her. My other brothers would not even talk to her. I would, you know, take her grocery shopping. She was on like an oxygen tank. You know, I would, you know, bathe her. It was like, you know, a full circle moment. But anyway, she died. And that was really traumatic, but it also taught me that life is short. And I decided, okay, I need to start living my life as Cassandra. And my mother's name was Sandra.
Right.
And my name originally was Casey, which, you know, Cassandra was just a natural transgression towards that. Okay. And I also love, like, Greek mythology, goddesses, and all that stuff. And,
of course she would look at the camera.
Right. I just believe, let's be real, this is just a body. Like, it is. I kind of look at it like Miss Potato Head. You know, you can add parts, take away parts, but what is important to me and always has been my heart.
Yes.
It's always been about really trying to put joy into the world, literally joy.
I'm here.
Because I've experienced so much pain and rejection, and I didn't want to facilitate that. I didn't want to be someone to be like that.
And we all know in the middle of potatoes is some of the most delicious stuff you will ever taste.
And yeah.
That girl thinking.
And you fry it. I just buy potatoes and I'll cut them up and bake them. You know, like little like potato like French fries because they're good. But anyways, so at that point, I decided that I wanted to move to Florida because that's where all the like most beautiful transgender women were from at the time.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, so my best friend, he was a kindergarten teacher, his name was Joe, and he's like, listen, I'll move down for the summer with you.
Aww.
And yeah, right, and he's still my friend. I mean, 20
Joe.
plus, you would love him. When he comes out, I'll introduce you.
Okay.
So he and me, basically, I packed everything up in the car, I threw away all my boy clothes, and I decided I'm gonna start living as Cassandra. And
okay, so no surgeries
No
yet.
surgeries, just hormones. So
okay.
I had like maybe like a little A-cup boobie, but I mean what you see before you now is probably like $300,000 worth of cosmetic work. And what I try to,
I said worth it.
Thank you. But what I tell people is, I was always like a pretty boy, but if you give the most beautiful girl like testosterone, it's gonna ruin her. You know, it changes skin, it makes things bigger. You know, I mean, a lot of people don't understand how powerful hormones are.
No, yes.
Yeah, so,
yes.
I mean, people who do like, you know, testosterone or steroids or stuff like that kind of get it.
Mm-hmm.
So we moved to Florida, and I moved down there, and I thought, oh, I'm Cassandra, life's gonna be great. No. I started, there's a lot of transphobia. Like, I could not get a job. I would go around, I would apply to everywhere. I applied to McDonald's, people would not hire me because I wasn't passable, which means, it was very obvious that I was obviously a boy and trying to live my life as a girl. And I just saw the most hateful side of people. I would walk into places and they would just burst out laughing and, just in my face, like I wasn't even a human being. And I'm such a tender heart. I just was like, couldn't understand it, but,
well, anybody, if you walk in somewhere and they burst out laughing, it's just like,
it's just not even good manners, but for some reason they felt that it was okay. This was, once again, before the trans movement and education. There's still ignorance, but it was insane. So I remember I was walking through Nordstrom, and I was going in the mall, and this gay guy, thank God for the gay boys, came up to me, and he's like, oh, you're so pretty. And I'm like, oh, thank you. Well, I need a job. You know what I mean?
Right.
And he's like, well, I have a friend who's hiring. Why don't you fill out an application? And it was a place called Trade Secret. Once again, a secret, always. Okay. So it was like a hair care place. And so I filled out the application, went in there, and gave it to the guy. And I thought ooh, God, aren't I really tense?
You are really tense.
Ooh. Oh my
Your
God.
shoulders aren't even like,
Oh my God. So, I went in there and filled out this application. I thought I had the job. And he's like, oh no, thank you for, applying.
Ew.
So I thought, I was pissed. And, I was a very pretty woman. Like, I was kind of street smart, and my emotions got the best of me.
Oh, did you walk in and be like, big mistake?
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh.
So I walked in, and I grabbed the application out of his hand, and I ripped it up. I crumbled it up and ripped it up. And threw it in the trash. I said, well, thanks for nothing, and walked out. So long story short is my friend who had got me, like the application, calls me and says, Cassandra, go back in there. I went back in there, and the guy was gay, and he said, listen, you have the job. Can you believe that? Like, he saw, like, he wanted to help me. I could almost cry. Because I think beneath, like, the attitude he saw, that just someone wanted to be given a chance.
Yeah. Right, you just needed a start.
I just needed a chance.
Yes.
I didn't want to, and prostitution was so prevalent in the, transgender community because, you couldn't get a job, and, people wouldn't hire you, and you're like, how am I going to make money? And not to be rude, but there's all these, like, really deviant, predatory guys out there. And,
oh, yeah.
That's why, for me, I've never been a big fan of prostitution because I don't like the idea of being able to buy someone, But I also understand how some people are put in positions that they feel they have no other way. Right. I just wish we lived in a society that wasn't the case.
I agree.
So long story short is, I got the job.
Yeah.
And I was a receptionist, and it was funny because I'm working around, hair care and beauty, and it's just really funny. So I'm learning how to become my authentic self. I'm learning about makeup. I'm learning how I should dress. But people would still come in and they, could tell, that I started out, as a different gender.
Right.
And they were, people were just so mean. I hate to say that, but it's the truth. I don't want to honeycoat it. People would come up, and I remember this lady, she had a Louis Vuitton purse, and she slams it down on the counter, and she's like, has anyone ever told you that you sound like a man? Just out of the blue. Oh. And I said, well, yes, they have, because I am one. I always had a little bit of attitude, but then I would go in the back and cry,
right.
When she left, and I was like, God damn it. And as I got older, now that I'm older, I'm like, wow, I know better now. When someone tries to make fun, I realize that they're just miserable.
And they're jealous.
They're jealous, or they're just wanting, because I see people, who maybe aren't in a position that I'm blessed to be in right now, and why would I go out of my way to make them feel like crap? No. I just will never understand it. So at that point, I met, I would go to the gay clubs, and there were beautiful transgender women. So I befriended them. If you want to be something, you should surround yourself with them. So just
That's why I'm around a bunch of pretty people, because it's gonna happen, right?
Oh, you are pretty.
You're like...
and comics and stuff, you know. So long story short is I became friends with a lot of the girls, and I learned about, you know, where they got their surgeries, you know, where you should go, what you should get done, you know, things to soften you. And I remember that I went to this support group because I also didn't want to just be in the party scene. Like, I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't do drugs. I might look like a party girl, but I'm not.
Right.
I'm like, so I remember I went to the support group and I met this older guy. His name was Jerry, and he was like 60. And you could tell he wanted to transition, but he felt it was too late in life for him. And I was, you know, in my early 20s, and he just really, like, became enamored with me. He thought I was super funny and, you know, always wanted to be around me and took me out, and he would take me shopping. And I remember, you know, he tried to make a move, and I was like, Jerry, I don't feel that way about you. You know, that's just not how I feel. And he's like, no, it's okay. But then, you know, I knew I needed a nose job and needed some work, and he offered to pay for it. And I was like, oh, okay. But I remember I went and got it done.
So the nose was the first?
The first.
Okay.
The first surgery was my nose. And I got my Adam's apple done. And that was the first. And I remember coming out, and it was like Pretty Woman. Jerry was pretty well off. He was like a pharmaceutical representative or something. And I remember he really loved me. He really did. But I just, you know, I mean, I just didn't feel that way about him. But I was always very clear. You know, I didn't, you know, have sex with him or even try any of that. But I remember he tried, like, my face was all bandaged up, and he had rented this, like, beautiful suite. You know, it had, like, you know, flowers.
Was it at the Sahara Motel?
The Sahara Motel. No, it was honestly, it was like Pretty Woman. I mean, I've always loved that movie, and he just didn't look like Richard Gere.
He didn't have a gerbil up his ass. Okay.
No, he did not. So at this point, oh, I love it. So, at this point, he, you know, tried to make a move on me, and I'm like, Jerry, I don't feel that way.
Oh, he was trying because you were all drugged
yes,
up.
I was like, yes!
Wow.
Like, I mean, come on. I remember he was reaching for my crotch, and I'm like, my nose is all bandaged up, and I'm like...
And your crotch is still a boy's crotch.
I'm still a boy's crotch,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, it was just really, really, like, you know, I told him. And then I decided that I wanted to move to LA. I've always wanted to move to Hollywood. Always. Hollywood. I just didn't know how to get there. And I didn't want to come to Hollywood until I was ready. You know, until I felt I looked the way I wanted to. Even though I didn't feel I looked the way I wanted to at the time, I thought I did. You know, I thought, oh, I had my nose job, and now I can go take over Hollywood. Yeah, right. So, Jerry was like, well, I would like to get you an apartment, you know, and put me up. You know, very Pretty Woman. You know, like when I was a little kid, I, you know, dreamed of a, you know, that whole thing.